Good morning. Welcome to the second lecture of the Introduction to Python lecture series. Today we'll see the continuation topics in Python. So in the last tutorial we have seen the basic building blocks for any programming language to write a simple program, and they are the variables, different types of operations on the integers, boolean values and float values, and then we have seen conditional operations like greater than, less than, comparison operations, and finally we have seen iteration operations for doing the same computation over and over again. So those are the things that are required to write any simple program. So now let's go into some more detail or in-depth options in Python. So in this lecture we are going to cover these topics. So the vector data types, so these are similar to arrays in C programming, and after that I will introduce NumPy module, so which is basically an array, but it is very powerful, so you can compute, you can manipulate these arrays much faster compared to a normal list. And later on we'll see how we'll use these NumPy arrays to compute 1D and 2D functions, and finally I'll show you how to plot data or images in Python. So that's the content for today's lecture. So let's go into vector data types. So in the previous lecture we have seen variables, for example integers, floats or boolean values, but they are single values. So for example, if we say a equals to 1, so a can store only a value 1. So if you want to store multiple values, for example multiple integers or multiple floats, so there is something called lists in Python. So in list we can, so this is the syntax for a list in Python. So where this is the name of the list, and the list opens with a square braces, and then all the values are separated by commas, and finally we have to close the list using a closed brace. So this is the syntax. Unlike the arrays and lists in C or Java programming, so the Python list can store multiple data types. If you see, so the first value and second value are integers, and the third value is a string value. Okay, and if you see the second statement here, so a list also can store another list. Okay, so here we have declared L1 as a list. In the second list L2, the first element is L1 itself, and the second element is a string. Okay, and there are some of the commands or some of the operations that we can do on lists. For example, if we have two lists L1 and L2, we can use this plus operation to join these two lists. And if you and another just like we have seen in the last lecture, so if you want to address a string, if you want to find the first element or second element in a string, so we use this notation. Similarly, if you want to find nth member of a list, you have to use again index inside a closed and open square braces, and again the indexing starts from 0, okay, not from 1 in similar in MATLAB. So now let's try these commands in the Python shell. So in order to open the Python shell, as I said in the last lecture, so you have to open this canopy command prompt, which I have already opened for you. So after you open this, you just have to type Python. So now it will open the Python shell. So if you don't type Python and if you try to run your programs, it gives error. Once you type Python, it goes into the Python shell. Okay. So now let's try out the commands that I have shown here. Let's say L1. So print L1, give the values 1, 2 and 4, and let's create another list. So this list has only strings, say, and print L2 and it gave the value. So let's create another list L3. This time it is the concatenation of L1 and L2. So now it has the values of both L1 and L2. And if you want to add just one element to the already existing list, so there is another command called append. So now I will show you how to use an append command. So let's take the string L3, so which has 1, 2, 4 and this string. If you want to add another number, for example, if you want to add number 5.0 to this list, so the command is L3 dot append and the value that you want to append. Okay, so now this value is already added to the L3. So to see it, let's print the list again. So now if you see here, the value 5 is added at the end of the existing list. Okay, so now let's see how to index a list. So if you want to print second element of L3, so second element means indexing is 1, not 2. So it has given the value 2 as the output. So these are the different basic operations that we can do using list. So now let's see an example where we have to use a list. Okay, so this program, you can open the same program that I have given to you. So here what we are doing is we are finding the common divisors of two numbers. Okay, so you all know what is a common divisors. For example, if you have numbers 10 and 4, so what are the common divisors? So one is common divisor for any two numbers, and the second one is 2. I think that's all. So 1 and 2 are the common divisors for the given two integers. So now let's try to see what this program here is doing. So the first n1 and n2, so we are using the same raw input command that we have used in the previous lecture, and then we have converted them into integers using this integer command. After these two statements, so we get the values of two numbers from the input. Initially we have created an empty list, which means so we can create an empty list using this open and closed braces without giving anything inside it. And now we are using a for loop to find the different common divisors. So how we are doing is, so the algorithm is, so obviously if there are two numbers, so the common divisor cannot be larger than the smallest of the two numbers, right? So in this case, for example, if we take these two numbers, so the common divisor, the largest common divisor is always less than or equal to the smallest number of these two. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are taking the numbers from 1 all the way to the smallest number, and we are using an if statement to see if this number is dividing these two numbers or not. So if the number is dividing the two numbers, we are adding it to the divisors, we are appending that number to the divisors list. If it is not, we are going to the next number in the for loop. Okay, so again I have started a for loop, and the range of numbers that I am taking here is 1 to minimum of these two numbers plus 1, because if you remember in the last lecture we have seen, so range command will only give the values from 1 to n minus 1. Okay, so in order to compensate for it, so we have to get values from 1 to n. We are adding 1 to the smallest number, and in the if statement I am checking if the I number, so which is in the list of values, is dividing using percentile operation. I am comparing if it is dividing using the percentile operation, and again and conditional statement, logical statement, to see if the number in the list is dividing both or not. And if it is dividing, and I am coming inside the for loop and I am appending. So in appending, as I have said before, so you can append by using the append statement, or you can also create a new list and add it to the existing list. Okay, so this is similar to dot. So both statements are allowed, so you can use whichever you want. And finally we are printing the divisors. Okay, so now let's go back to the Python Canopy editor. This is the same program that I have shown you in the slides. So I am running it. So let's give the two numbers that we have seen, 10 and 4. So now it has printed the values 1 and 2. So we can try different set of numbers. We can say 125. So 1, 5 and 25 are the common divisors. Okay, so now we have seen what are lists and how to access different numbers from a list and how to add numbers to a list, and we have seen a simple example program that uses the list command. Okay, yeah, so now in this slide we will see different operations that we can do on lists. So as we have seen, a for loop, in for loops, so so far what we are doing is we are using the following statement, following syntax. We are saying for I in range of some number, and inside this for loop, so the I value is being assigned the values sequentially. We can do the same thing in without giving this range command. What we can do is we can write for I or some other variable a in a list. We can directly give the name of the list. Okay. So to demonstrate that, I have how to erase this?
Minimize the completion. Minimize. No. Open it. Now minimize.
Okay. Okay. So to show that, so this is a simple example. So ABBRs is a list, and the members of the list are different types of aberrations. Okay. So you know there are 5 major types of aberrations, which are spherical, coma, astigmatism, field curvature, and chromatic. So in this simple script, what I am doing is I am using a for loop to print all these different kinds of aberrations one after another. So ABBR is a dummy variable that we are using for the iteration, and the list here is the list that we have declared in the previous statement. Okay. So now what is happening here is, so this dummy variable ABBR will be assigned one of the members of the list on each iteration, and using the print statement we are printing the values of this variable. Okay. So we can quickly try it out in the Python shell. So now I have declared this list ABBR. Yeah, so we have declared a list that has the value that has different types of aberrations. We used a for loop, and a is the dummy variable here, and on each of the iteration step a is assigned one of these strings, and we are printing the strings in the output command. Okay, so now let's see an example function, so where we want to calculate the phase function of a lens. Okay, so as phase function of a lens is given by this equation. So P is given by K into so this is the phase function of a lens. So this is a lens, and you can see the thickness of the lens in the y direction is varying with this profile of the lens. Okay, so which means the thickness of the lens is a function of its position along the y axis. So now let's create a let's sample this lens into 10 equal points, and that is done using this range statement. Let's say this is minus 10 and this is plus 10, and we have around 20 points along the y-axis, and let's say the wavelength is 632 nanometers, and we have initialized a empty list, so which is the phase which is going to hold the values of phi along this y-axis, and let's say the focal length is 10 meters, and k we know 2 pi by lambda, so is calculated this using this equation, and in the for loop, and I is the dummy variable that is going to take the values in the range minus 10, minus 9 and so on 10, and this is the equation that I have written here to calculate the phase, and after calculating this phase I am adding these phase values to the total phase list using this append command. So let's see how this program works. So this is the same program. So let's run this. So with the given values, so these are the phase values so that the program has calculated. So you can try giving different focal length, or you can try giving different wavelength. Based on that, the phase values of the lens are going to change. So this program I have given so that you will know how to manipulate the lists, how to do different operations on lists. So now let's move on to some fun program. So now you all know different aspects of the Python program. So now let's see if you can write a simple program. So if you have computers, I suggest all of you to follow this simple simulation, and you can write your own program, and let's see what this program. So now let's assume there is a window in a room, and this is the window, and the window's length is 1 meter, and this is 1 meter, and this is also 1 meter, and now you are asked to randomly throw some stones in the window. Okay, and let's assume all the stones are going through the window, not somewhere on the walls or anywhere. So now using the simulation, how to find the value of pi? We know pi is the ratio of a circle circumference with its diameter, and pi is also an irrational number, and the value of pi is given by 3.1415 and a lot of decimal points. So now let's see how this simulation is going to give the value of pi to us. Okay, so just imagine this imaginary circle inside this window, and the diameter of this imaginary circle is also 1 meter, just like the window. Okay, suppose if you are throwing some 100 stones inside that window, and if you somehow can figure out how many stones are going through this imaginary circle, so if you divide the number of stones that are going inside the circle with the total number of stones that you have thrown inside the window, so that is going to roughly estimate going to be the ratio of the areas of the circle and area of the rectangle. So am I clear? Okay, so now let's see. As I said, the side of the window is 1 meter, so from that we can calculate the area of window is 1 meter square, and I said the radius of the circle is 0.5 meters, or the diameter is 1 meter. So from this we can see the area of the circle is pi by 4, but we don't know what is pi. We want to see what is pi using the simulation. Okay, so suppose if you are throwing n number of stones, let's say, and if you, after throwing each of these stones, you are throwing the stones randomly, but you are not preferentially throwing, okay, this should go inside the circle or this should avoid the circle, but you are randomly just throwing the stone. So after throwing each of the stones, you are measuring if it is going inside the circle or if it's going inside the rectangle but not inside the circle. So if you know this from probability, we can say the area of this is wrong. So the probability of the stone going inside the circle is given by the area of circle divided by the total area or area of the window. Okay, so the probability is given by pi by 4 divided by 1, which is pi by 4. Okay, so now we are going to do a random simulation in Python. So here what we are doing is, so we are picking some random numbers between so let's say, just say this is 0.5 and this is 0.5 and this is 0 comma 0, this is 0.5 comma 0.5, so on. Okay, so now we are picking numbers randomly between minus 0.5 and 0.5 for both x and y coordinates, and we are computing to see if this randomly picked number is lying within the circle or not. So how do we do it? So if you have a random x comma y number, so we can calculate the distance of this point from origin using square root of x square plus y square, and if the distance is less than 0.5, so we can say the number is lying inside the circle. Okay, so this is the idea that we are going to have and write the program, and this is the implementation steps. So what we are going to do is, we are using a for loop to simulate n number of trials or n number of stones throwing into the window, and on each of this iteration, so we pick a number between 0.5 to 0.5 or 0 to 1 for both x coordinate and y coordinate. Okay, so after using the random package in Python. Okay, I will show you what is the random package. So after picking these two numbers, so we have to calculate the distance of this point from the origin. Okay, so using this formula, square root of x square plus y square, based on the distance we have to find if the value is lying inside the circle or away from the circle. So if the value is lying inside the circle, so we have to increment some dummy variable that we create at the starting of the program. So after finally you run through the n number of iterations, you just have to take the ratio of the points that lie inside the circle and the total number of points, and this ratio is going to be pi by 4. So we don't know what is pi, but we don't know what this ratio is going to be at the end of the program. To calculate the pi, we just have to multiply the ratio with 4, and it roughly gives the value of pi. Okay, so I will show you the program. I have already written it, or if you want, I will give you 2 minutes, you can write it by yourselves, otherwise I can just open. Yeah, so this is the program, and here if you see the first line of the program, so we are importing a package in Python called random, and we are giving it some nickname R, because writing random.random is going to take a lot of effort. So from now onwards we refer the random package as R. Okay, and we are importing the NumPy package, which I haven't discussed, but I'll show you later, and finally the some other package PyLab. So here I am saying the radius of the circle is 0.5 and the side of the window is 1, and I am taking some 1000 number of random trials. Okay, so again I am using a for loop, and on each of these trials I am taking two numbers, so x and y, from within minus 0.5 to plus 0.5. Again y coordinate is also lying within minus 0.5 to 0.5. So I am calculating the distance using this equation that I have shown before. So I am using this if statement to see if this point is lying inside the circle or not. So that I am doing the distance that I have calculated in this step. If it is less than the radius, I am incrementing this variable which I have declared here, points inside a circle. Initially it is 0. So whenever a point that is randomly picked lies inside the circle, I am incrementing this variable using this command. And finally, as I have said in the, so the ratio that we get from the program equals to pi by 4, and the value of pi is given by ratio multiplied by 4. So I am using the same equation here, so where pi is given by, so points inside the circle by total number of points, and finally I am printing the value of pi. So let's run this program and see what would be the estimate for pi. So with maybe let's just start with 100 trials. I'm running the program. So with 100 trials, the program is estimating the pi value as 3.08. Okay. and if we run the program again, so it's going to give some other value, because we have used the random package, and each time we are getting different set of values. We are not going to get the same number of values that we got in the first run. Okay, so let's run it again. So it's giving 3.36, again 3.48, and so on. Let's try to we know the pi value is 3.1415, but the values that are giving is close to the pi value, but it is not very accurate. Okay, so in order to make it more accurate, so we can increase the number of random trials. Let's increase it to 1000 and see. So now it has come down to 3.17, which is very close to the actual pi. So let's run it again. So it's giving 3.26. Maybe we increase the number of trials to a large number, like 1 million. So it's getting very close to the actual pi value, right? 3.14. So if I still increase the values, it's going to take little time, because it has to iteratively calculate this. Let's wait. Okay, let that run. Yeah, so after doing this iteration, it has said 3.1417 is the value for pi. So if you keep increasing the iterations, it's going to get converged to the actual value of pi. Okay, so I hope you found this little exercise interesting. So now let's go into something very useful in Python and very powerful. So far we have seen lists in Python. Basically a list is a group of different types of integers or floats or strings. Lists are good, but they are not very great if you are doing this, sequential kind of operations. If you are I'll show you what I mean by sequential operations in this slide. So as I have shown in the previous exercise, we have calculated the phase function of a length using lists, right? So we had a length, and this is the y-axis, and we have sampled this y-axis around 20 points, and then we use the equation phi equals to k into f minus square root of y square plus f square. Equation to calculate the phase at each of these points. So we did this using a for loop. So this is okay, and this is reasonable when you have some very small number of y values, so like 100 or 1000 points in your list. But as the number of values or number of integers in your list keeps getting more and more, like 1000, 10,000, 1 million, so this for loop operation is not very useful, and it gets very slow. So which we have seen in the previous example. So where we have tried to calculate the pi value using 10,000, we have seen the program has slowed down quite a lot. It took some 10 seconds or so to calculate the value. So in order to calculate this equation at one go, so there is something called NumPy in Python. So I'll just show you a brief example here. So in the previous case, what we are doing is, so if you want to calculate, for example, a function, so the function is f of x equals to sin x, this is y. So in order to calculate this, what we are doing is we are taking x values from so and so 0 to 10, and we are using for loop here, and on each of these for loops we are calculating the value sin x, and we are appending this to y. Okay, so this is okay, and this is easy to write, but this takes a lot of time, especially these two lines. Okay, so these are the observations I want you guys to make at this point. So here, this command to calculate the sin value, we have to import this math from the library, and math.sin will calculate the value of sinusoid function for all these I values. So now let's see how we do the same thing using NumPy array. So for this, we have to first import the package using this command, import NumPy, and sorry, what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'll quickly tell how to do the same thing in NumPy. So the equivalent steps. First, we have to import the numpy. Okay, and after that we have to create similarly the range of x values that we want to use to calculate y. So but there is a slight difference. So earlier we have used this range command which gives a list of values from 0 to 10, but here we are using another command, arange. So this command will give a numpy array, okay, which is different from list. And so these two steps can be written in just single step. Y equals to math x, that's all. We don't have to write any for loop. Okay, so the output will be a list of values that has sinusoid of x. So let's just quickly go into Python and write this program. Okay, sorry. Oh yeah, thanks. Okay, so this is how we do in normal using for loops. To do the same thing, as I've said before, everything is same, but we just have to make an array, not just. So for that, before I have to import numpy. So these two lines are exactly similar to what we have written here, but here we are making use of the numpy array. And if you run the program, yeah. Okay, yeah, instead of using math.sign, you have to use the sign function in the numpy library, otherwise it gives the error that we have seen. So these two are identical, and I'll see if I have the program. Yeah, so this is a simple program I have written to compare so the efficiency and the speed of operations when you use numpy and normal lists. So here what I'm taking a large number of iterations, so 1 million iterations or so, and I'm defining a function. Functions I have not explained what are functions in Python, but for now just imagine it's just a function like any other programming language. So here I am defining two functions. So in this function I am just using the for loop to calculate some operation on such a big number of array, and in this function I am doing the same operation but I am using a numpy array. Okay, So I'm calling these two functions and I'm calculating the time that it had taken when you use just the list operations and if you use the Python NumPy. So I'll just run the program and hope it will take less time. Yeah. So these are the times that I have taken by the for loop, the first. So it took around 2 seconds to calculate using for loops, and it just took 0.07 seconds to do the same operations using NumPy. And in this I am just comparing how fast NumPy. So for this case it's NumPy is 25 times faster than for loops, and I can increase this number, but I am afraid it may take a lot of time. Yeah. Okay, let it run. Oh, it crashed. Okay, just believe me, NumPy is very fast because this program is taking very long time. Okay, yeah. Okay, so now we have seen NumPy array is much faster than the list. So now let's see how do we do some of the examples that we have seen before using lists. So in this function, so what I am doing is I am calculating the phase function of a lens. So the only difference here is, so instead of creating a list using range command, I have used a range command to calculate the steps from, like in this lens, the values from -y to y. And instead of writing the for loop, here I have just directly plugged the value of y in this equation. So this is equivalent to writing a equation. This is equivalent to just typing an equation. You don't have to write for loops. Okay, and we are printing the value of y using this command. And this is some other example. So here what I am doing is I am taking x values from 0 to 2 pi, and I am taking 100 samples from 0 to 2 pi using this line space command. So what arange does is, so arange will give, if I say arange of n, it gives 0 to n values, equally spaced integers. But in line space you can specify how many points, how many samples you want in that interval. So in this case what I am asking the program to do is give me 100 equally spaced values between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, so the command will give you 100 values. So in this first one what I am calculating is this function. So y equals to x into sin x. So I just have to write just like any mathematical equation, but it will interpret as a list, as a NumPy array without for loops. But normally to do the same thing, what we have to do in NumPy is we have to create in list is create a dummy list and write a for loop, and on each of the iterations we have to append the value of the computation to the new array. But in Python we can just write this expression and it will calculate the values. And the second expression, I am calculating this quadratic cubic equation, x cube plus 5x square minus 2x plus 10 in just one simple statement. Okay, I hope you all understood how easy to write the equations or expressions in NumPy compared to for loop. So let's run these programs. This is working. Okay, so these are the programs that I have shown before. So in the first one we are calculating the radius of the phase values for a lens, and these are the values of the phase at different points. In the second function I am calculating different x sin x function and a quadratic expression, and these are the values printed by the function. This is the y1, and from here onwards it is the y2. Okay, so now we have seen how to calculate mathematical expression using NumPy. Now let's see how to plot them in Python. It's very easy. So in order to plot data in Python, you have to use this library called PyLab. Just like NumPy, it's another library, PyLab. And so in this example, what I'm going to plot is the phase function of a lens, so that we have seen before. So the radius of the lens is 10 centimeters, and so this 10 centimeter radius I am sampling at the interval of 0.01. Okay, so what I am doing here is minus 0.12 plus 0.1. I am sampling with a spacing of 0.001. Okay, and the wavelength is 633 nanometers, and the focal length is 1 micrometer around, and k again is the wave vector 2 pi by lambda. And using NumPy we can write the phase equations in just one expression. And these are the two main commands that we use to plot this data. Okay, so PyLab is the package that we are using, and plot is the command that will plot the data. And for the plot command, we have to give both the values of x and y coordinates. Okay, so here the x coordinate is actually y, because these are the values against which we want to calculate the phase of the lens, and y values is going to be the phase at that particular location. And finally we have to give this statement pylab.show to show the plot. If you don't write this command, so it will execute this, but it won't give the plot for you to visualize. Okay, so you always have to write this statement after you use this command. This is very simple, and so I can go back, plotting. Yeah, so this is the program that I wrote to plot the data. Okay, so it opens up. So sorry, yeah, okay. So in this program I have plotted a sinusoid function. So in order to plot the sinusoid, so I took 15 periods to plot, and I have taken 1000 points along the x-axis, and the value of sinusoid is calculated by this function y equals to sine of so and so, and this figure, it gives a figure canvas to plot, and this command as I have said before will be used to plot the data. And if you want to give the labels for x and y axis, for example, what is x axis and what is y axis, you just have to say using this command. So in this case, it's I am plotting a sinusoid with respect to time. Okay, and the y coordinate is the amplitude of the sine, and if I increase the number of periods or decrease the number of periods, it will be reflected. So okay, yeah, this is the time period in seconds. Okay, so if I want to increase the time period, which means I'll get lesser number of sinusoids, so I can give 50 as the time period, and the total duration that we are plotting the sinusoid is 200 seconds. Okay, so if the total duration is 2 seconds and if the period is 50, you're going to get 4 periods, and if I give 100 as the time period, you are just going to see 2 sinusoids, just like this. Okay, so this is how you plot data in Python. And there are other examples that I have given here. So here we can also plot sin x, or this quadratic equation x cube plus 5x square, using the same command. Okay, and this is how these look like. And finally, the most important thing that you guys will be using in your simulations is how to simulate interference and diffraction. So for that, you need to learn something called two-dimensional NumPy array. So far we have seen the arrays to be one-dimensional, which means they don't have n by n kind of shape. They are just 1 by n kind of arrays. So but this is actually the real power of NumPy comes from, where you have n by n values or m by n values. So in Python, in NumPy, so this is how you create an n by n array, or here it is 3 by 3 array. So NumPy dot array, and within this curly braces you give actually the array, and it will convert it into a NumPy array. So to print a particular value, for example the first value, so index 0 comma 0, the indexing starts from this point, and this is 0 1, this is 0 2, this is 1 0, and so on. So if you want to print the first value, you give the a of 0 0. So if you give a of 1 comma 2, it is going to be first row and second column, okay, 0 1 2, okay. So it is going to print the value of 6. It will print the value of 6. And if you want to create an array of 100 by 100 zeros or 100 by 100 ones, so this is the command is used. So numpy dot ones of, you have to give the shape of the matrix. I mean how many 100 by 100 or 50 by 50, whatever. Similarly, there is another command called numpy dot zeros, and you have to give the shape. Remember, there are two brackets here, not just one. 50 by 50. So this will return a matrix of 50 by 50 zeros. Okay. So these are some handy operations in NumPy if you want to have a big array of same values. So if you want to create a big array of 5s, what you can do is you can create an array of 5, array of 1s, and you can just multiply with 5. So this will convert it into a matrix of all 5s or all 100s, whatever you want. Okay. And next important thing is the mesh grid. So mesh grid is very useful if you want to calculate functions of two variables. So far in previous example we have seen sin x or x cube, some quadratic function. But if you want to calculate a function of two variables, for example if you take a lens, so lens is a two-dimensional element, it's not just one-dimensional. If you want to calculate the phase at each point of the lens, so you can create a mesh grid or the coordinate system for a lens, and you can just write the lens function. So let me draw a lens for you, and this is a lens and this is the coordinate system. Let us say if your lens is some 10 centimeters in diameter, so this is going to be -5 comma -5, this is -5 comma 5. This is the coordinate system of the lens. So you can sample this coordinate space into as many number of points as you want. You can create like 10 points, -4 minus this grid, or you can create even finer grid like -5, -4.5, -4, and so on. So the more finer you make this matrix, so the more memory your program is going to consume. Okay. So in this example, for example, if you want to calculate a lens function, so you have to take this coordinate system, and the coordinate system ranges from -5 to 5 in x direction and -5 to 5 in y direction. Okay. So now if you want to calculate all the coordinate points, pair of coordinates in this mesh grid, so there is a command, sorry this is gone. So in this particular example what I am doing is I am sampling the coordinate system like this, so -10 to 10 in x and -10 to 10 in y, and I am taking at one interval -8 and so on. Similarly So I have given the range of x values and I have given the range of y values. So by using this command, so what it does is it takes the range of x and range of y values, and it will return two matrices, xx and yy, and the xx and yy will hold a two-dimensional matrix of 20 by 20. So all the, for example in this example, so it is going to be -10 comma +10, so -9 comma 10, and so on all the way till 10 comma 10. Okay. Similarly this is -9 comma 10, sorry -9 comma 9, and -10 comma 9, -9 comma 10, and so on. So this is how the coordinate system is going to look like. So what this mesh grid command will do is it will take all the x coordinates from these points and then store it in xx, and it will take all the y coordinates from these set of points and store it in yy. For example, if you want to calculate the lens function, you can just simply write, so you can convert the xx into and yy into radial coordinate. For example, if there is a point here, so the radial distance can be given by square root of xx square plus yy square, right? And if you say r equals to this, so it is going to convert all these xx and yy into radial points. Okay, so that is what we have done here. Or if this is too complicated, just forget it. Okay, so for the case of a two-dimensional lens, the equation is same, but we are also adding the x coordinate is given by k into f minus square root of x square plus y square plus f square. So in the earlier case we have seen the phase variation only in one direction, which is y, but in this example we want to see the phase variation overall in 2D. So for that we have to add both x square and y square. So normally if you are doing the same thing in for loop, what you would need to do is you have to write two for loops, one for loop for x coordinate, and inside that you have to write another for loop for the y variation. And if you have two for loops and each running n times, the complexity is going to be n square. It's going to take n square number of iterations to calculate. But in NumPy you don't have to write any for loop. Whatever equation you are seeing here, you just translate it to normal Python statement. Okay, so but this xx and yy you have to calculate using the mesh grid. You understand? So this is how you calculate a 2D lens profile in using mesh grid. Sorry? Yeah, here we have taken 200 points between minus 10, 10, like minus 10, minus 9.9 and so on. So you can increase it to 500. So if you increase it to 500, what is going to happen is you will have 500 by 500 matrix to represent your lens. So if you want to represent your phase of a lens very accurately, you take more number of points, like 1000 by 1002. But if you take too many number of points, obviously if you want to do some computation like FFT or DFT, so it will take a lot of time. So there is a trade-off between how accurately you want to represent a particular optical element and how much time you want to spend in doing your computation. Okay, so ideally 500 by 500, 1000 by 1000 is not a big deal for Python. So it will be very comfortable handling that number of elements. But if you go to 5000 by 5000 or 10,000 by 10,000, so it will take a lot of time, and it depends on your computer's RAM and processor and all those things. Okay, so now in this example I have calculated the lens function in 2D. So if you want to represent 2D data, you cannot do it using plot. So you have to show it as an image, right? So each pixel will have some color and you have a color bar. So to do this in Python, we use this command py.imshow, and for this imshow you have to give the 2D array. So in this case the face profile, and you can give a color bar to show what color bar is doing. And finally this command you should not forget, otherwise it won't display the function. So after I run this, so I'll get something like this. So this is the phase function of a lens. So in the earlier case what we have done is we have calculated the phase only along the y direction, you remember, and the phase looked like some function like this, right? Yeah, I think it's over. And the phase function looked like this. But in this case we are calculating the function in both x and y, and this is the color map. The phase is maximum at the center from this color, and it is reducing in this manner when you go to the extremities, which is given by this color. Okay, and similarly you can compute different functions. So to show you, I have plotted a Bessel function. So Bessel beams are very useful, which are not covered in this course. If you are interested, you can read about them. So for this I am using another package called SciPy. It has all scientific functions in it. So from SciPy I am taking this Bessel function, which is given by Jn, and for the Bessel function, it's a radial function. So in order to calculate radial functions, I have converted the x and y coordinate into a radial coordinate system, or r theta coordinate system. So you all know how to convert from Cartesian to r theta. R is given by square root of x square plus y square. Theta is given by tan inverse y by x. So simply you can get the mesh grid from this equation, and based from these two you can convert it into r theta just by giving r equals to this and theta equals to tan inverse y by x. But in this case I don't need the theta, I just need the radial coordinate, which I have obtained using this equation. and this is the command to plot the Bessel function. So 0 is the 0th order Bessel function. You can give 1 or 2, whichever order of the Bessel you want, but in this case I am just plotting 0th order, and the radial coordinate into some scaling factor 5 here. You can give whatever scaling factor you want. Finally I am plotting it using the IMShow function. I have to write this, otherwise it won't display. So this is how a Bessel function is going to look like. It has a central maximum and followed by so many concentric rings around the central peak. So this is all for the today's lecture. So we have seen how to do this sequential operations using normal for loops, and we have seen how to do the same thing using NumPy. In NumPy it is just like writing a mathematical equations in the form of a Python statement, and we have also seen it's very faster using a comparison between lists and NumPy arrays. And finally we have seen how to plot one-dimensional data using plot command, and finally we have also seen how to plot a mesh grid or a two-dimensional data using IMShow command. So with this the introduction to Python is over, and in the next lecture I will show how to model interference and diffraction phenomena using whatever we have learned so far in Python. Okay, so that's it for the lecture. Thank you.